Really what we're here today for is to take a look at the Velocity application with Android handheld mobile computers. Often many of them incorporate scan engines, things like that, various technologies from a hardware perspective and manufacturers. Velocity is a third-party application that runs on the Android platform. So, we're not really talking about hardware today as much as we are about Velocity and what CSSI can help you with inside of the Velocity console. So, with that, why are we here? We're going to dive into that a little bit, but this is just a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to talk about why we're here. We're going to talk about MOMS, which is an acronym that we use with our customers to discuss the process of migrating sometimes to Android and definitely to Velocity. How does Velocity work? What are the phases of MOMS in a little more detail? Then we're going to go into a demo of each of those phases, and then, as Joe said, some Q&A. So let's dive right into, kind of why we're here. Many of you are probably at a point in time where, you're hearing a lot of buzz about Microsoft no longer playing in the Windows mobile space. That includes, all of the Windows mobile operating systems, the Windows CE operating systems, and then as of late, the Windows 10 IoT OS is no longer supported by Microsoft, so they just kind of exited that game. So I know a lot of you are curious and maybe somewhat nervous about what we need to do to get off of that platform and onto a more modern OS like Android. Some of you are here because of AT hardware. Again, that whole OS hardware kind of life cycle comes into play. But, the speed and intuitive use of your consumer phones that everybody has today, I think I saw a graphic somewhere, 94% of the world has a smartphone at this point. So, the speed and use of those consumer phones are really exposing a lot of our customers' legacy hardware flaws and some of the speed and less intuitive interfaces of those Windows mobile platform computers. In addition to that, a lot of our end users, especially in warehousing, are still using some type of terminal emulation to connect to their warehouse management software. Many companies are very comfortable with that software. It works, and it's a very sound software from a process standpoint. What we're seeing in the field is a lot of the IT teams really lack the industry knowledge on how to support those old TE systems. It's not something that they're teaching at a collegiate level on how to manage those types of softwares and systems anymore. So, really it can be intimidating for IT teams to figure out what we're going to do to migrate. So we're going to talk about some of that. Another reason that you may be here, the workforce is getting younger by the day. So, we have a whole bunch of millennials and now even Gen Z that are entering the workforce every day that grew up touching devices. So these folks are very comfortable with modern technology. The other thing that you have going on is Generation X, or the Zennial, the gap between Generation X and the millennial generation, and even in some cases millennials, are starting to enter the managerial space. So, those folks are also very comfortable with technology, and they want to inject more technology into their business processes. So, I'm sure there's other reasons why people are here, but really those are what we're seeing in the field that's driving a lot of these conversations. So what we want to do today is we want to, the reason you're here doesn't really matter. We want to show you how to quickly migrate from an old system to a new system. We want to stress the point that you don't have to do anything to your backend to implement this. And we really want to take a look at some of the optimization features we can do to get you to a more touchscreen, more intuitive interface that end users are very comfortable with today in the world of the smartphone. So how do we do that? And that's where the MOMS acronym comes in. MOMS stands for Migrate, Optimize, Modernize, and Speech. So we're not going to really dive into speech. That's a larger, broader topic that we're going to save for another day. We're really going to focus on the Migrate, Optimize, Modernize portion today. And what do they mean? So, migrate is just that. Replace your old hardware, do the same thing tomorrow on new hardware that you do today on your legacy hardware, your mobile computers, your barcode scanners. Then phase 2 and sometimes phase 1A is an optimization of that. So, let us help you with enhancements to keyboards or key mapping, screen sizings, etc., to make the system work better and more natural for you, again, without doing anything on your back end. We can make those changes now on the device side. Android and Velocity by Ivanti have opened up a whole world of possibilities for us to make your system work in a more streamlined manner. And then finally, the modernization. That's kind of a phase 3 or sometimes a 2A kind of phase. A lot of times we optimize and modernize together, but deliver an intuitive touchscreen interface to the end user. What does that do for you as a business? It helps you reduce your training times because your system works smarter and is natively familiar to your users. We'll show you some of that in the demo period. Some examples of how that's possible. We can incorporate new buttons that can reduce the amount of touches or interactions the user needs to perform tasks. So we reduce error and we reduce touches. We basically reduce error by reducing touches and take your users where they need to be in a more efficient manner. Some of the other benefits of that is we can reduce some of the clutter on the screen to focus your attention to the immediate task. And, maybe we can reduce a keyboard touch where the user, instead of having to move their eyes from a field down to a keyboard back to a field, they can keep their eye focused on the task and the data that they need to pay attention to for their work task. So, again, we'll show you some of that. And again, like I said, the speech is something that's a whole animal in itself, so we're going to save that for another day where we can cover it in a lot more detail. So how does it all work? Again, you heard me say that we're going to do all of this on the device side. You're still using your Terminal Emulation server. The screens are the same. The scripts are the same that are being sent to the end devices. All of the magic is happening on the end device. So, the advanced hardware, the improved software let us do that. But the emulation system is still presenting the screen to the device the way it always has. So, and the strength of that is we can introduce some of these modernizations and the touch-friendly interfaces without those big back-end upgrades or infrastructure upgrades that are costly. They take a long time for your IT teams to implement. So really, we're trying to limit roadblocks while we help you become more efficient at your business process. I'm not trying to say that you IT folks on the call are always the roadblock, that you understand that, time is of the essence and you don't always have the resources to help your end users get where they want to be quickly. So, not trying to knock anybody with those statements. It's just the fact that, implementations take time, they take money, and they're challenging. So we want to help you get there and help everybody succeed quickly. So I'd like to take a look a little bit at, some of these stages in a little more detail and kind of talk to you about, why and how CSSI is the right partner to help you get through some of this stuff. So, we're going to jump right into that first M, which is the migrate. And really, no matter what you're here for, you've got battery issues, you've got Wi-Fi problems, your screens are too small. You want to be more modern and include a touch interface for your users rather than those old textual interfaces. Migrate is basically the first part of that, right? Do your business process that you're doing on your legacy hardware on new hardware. Fix problem A, which is your aging hardware. or the OS is no longer supported. When we talk to you about fixing that main problem, and most of the time that problem is a hardware discussion, right? This part of that process, this part of that transaction with CSSI is typically included. We will make sure when we are your vendor of choice for your hardware sale that you're able to do your business processes. We give you a provisioning process to work with. And all of that is included in that initial transaction. We're not going to just drop a box off or ship you a box of hardware and move on to the next. This is part of the offering that we bring. So migrate is really part of that hardware sale, or that upfront discussion that we have with all of the terminal emulation folks day one. So we got you covered on that front. So not to continue to beat that, we're going to kind of just look at how we do some of that. These screens that you see, and I apologize, it's a little bit of an eye chart, but the thing to notice here is the very keyboards. And, this is a VT220 set of keyboards that come directly out of the box with Velocity. They have incorporated, I haven't run into a terminal emulator that Velocity doesn't have a canned set of keyboards for yet. So key mappings, things like that, things that back in the day you used to buy a specific part number with a device that had a very specialized key for your emulator. That's no longer a concern with Velocity because they have soft keyboards built right into the application that give you all of the functionality you need. So, that's a great feature right out of the box, and it helps with that migration process, and it makes it easy. And again, this is typically included in that device provisioning line item of your proposal when the account when we talk about a hardware sale or something of that nature. On that note, we also have developed, and this is again really aligned at a VT220 system, but this is a set of keyboards that CSSI has created it's proven to reduce touches and increase efficiency and accuracy. Minimal key remaps are included, but the additional keyboards or templates can be changed quickly and easily. So the one thing that we tried to do with these keyboards is, incorporate color so your users can see the difference in what some of these buttons are. Notice the green arrows. If you're navigating with arrows, they're all green, and the function keys are a lighter gray. And then your normal keypads are a darker gray. And then at the top, the cool feature that we included was some navigational keys where it'll take you to a different set of keyboards. So it's more like a tabbed keyboard rather than a swipe. If we go back one slide here, oops, let me go back here. You'll notice on the CAN keyboards are great, but they are a swipe. So if you're on the alpha keyboard and you need to get to a function keyboard, you have to swipe 3 times to get over to the function keyboard. So we tried to take some of those touches away, or if you're on the alpha keyboard on the far left side here, you can tap function and very quickly get to the function keyboard. We also created these for a landscape mode in some of your larger, like a vehicle mount computer that you're using as a terminal emulator. And we actually were able to pare these down to 2 keyboards rather than 3 because we had more real estate. So you'll see that the alpha keyboard becomes an alphanumeric keyboard. We put some of the F1, 2, 3, 4, some of the heavier used function keys in most of the systems we see right on one keyboard. So just some quick things that CSSI has done, in our learnings and dealing with customers to make that migration even feel a little bit easier than what Velocity already did a great job at. And again, the point here is do tomorrow what you're doing today. So we're definitely on board with getting you there right out of the gate. The next phase is optimize. Optimization, the graphic at the bottom, just like Optimus Prime and the Transformer series, with Velocity, you can optimize your user experience without changing your overall system, or, in the case of Optimus Prime, who he really is. So Optimus is able to quickly change his disguise shape to a more accurately blend in with the times. So I don't know if any of you has seen the latest Transformer movie, Bumblebee, yet, but he was that old cab over rig in the late 80s. And as the series progresses into more modern times through other films, we see Optimus's shape kind of become more blending with the times, right? So really that's what optimized stage is we're going to take that very core WMS system that you use Terminal Emulation for today, and we're going to help you modernize that. We're going to get you to a more modern feel without changing who and what your system really is. So, again, that's incorporating keyboards. That's maybe doing some modernized screen overlays. And you really start to see how this works when we get into the demo, and show you how some of this optimization is beneficial to your organization. Again, a little bit of an eye chart, but this is an optimized set of keyboards. You'll notice, again, we use the tabs. This one is quite visually maybe confusing to some with the color scheme, but this is some stuff that we've used. Yes, no buttons instead of typing a Y or an N, immediately just presenting the user with that keyboard at the right moment, rather than a prompt where there's a yes or a no, can basically make the system more intuitive and lead your user to the correct response. The printer keyboard is another good example of that. In an old emulation system, they had to know, okay, if I print to printer 1, that's the main printer. If I print to printer 2, that's in the mezzanine level, or maybe it's a production office or a warehouse office as opposed to dock doors. So your users had to be trained on what they were, what printer sent their labels where. Now, with customization, you can say, hey, this is dock door 1, this is dock door 2, et cetera, et cetera. And you can really get granular on how you customize those things. So typically what we do in this optimized phase is we work with your power users in your warehouses or in your production facilities and help them, we get feedback from them on how we can make the system more efficient and natural, and make data entry more intuitive and accurate ultimately. So create the keyboards, create buttons on the keyboards that they don't normally have. That could be like a macro, so you can move ahead in menus quickly or exit the system quickly. So those are all things that we kind of have a discovery with your teams to figure out. So a lot of this also depends on some screen capture. So after your initial rollout, we would perform a screen capture where typically we would have a power user navigate the system, make sure that he's getting to all the screens. And if that takes a day, then great. If it takes a month to make sure we have all your screens, and we capture screens for a month. And then, we have that discovery day. Out of the discovery day, we would have enough information to provide a proposal for managed services to complete your desired optimizations. So, this is something that we can talk about during a migration or a pre-migration and come up with a plan on how we get to the optimization phase. Or optimization may be something that you never even tackle. You just migrate and you're happy. But, we want to make sure our customers know that there's more functionality and capability out there. We want to talk about how to make it a real possibility for your teams to become more accurate and more efficient. So just on some of the optimization, again, just some comparison here. We were able to kind of trim the fat off some of these screens, if you will, and maybe leverage some of the right buttons and layouts for your operational needs. So, while the function key that comes out of the box is great, it has every function that you could possibly use. Maybe your team only uses an F3, an F5, an F8, and F7. We can very quickly give you just those 4 or 5 function keys that you use all the time, and just trim the fat, make it easier to use, make your system more user-friendly. And then the last phase we're going to talk about today is really the exciting one for me, is the modernization. So, again, it follows the same path with optimization, kind of the same process. But this is where we really see the productivity go up and the human error go down. And hopefully in our demo you'll be able to see some of that. But we really focus on increasing your productivity with maybe some custom buttons, which limit the need for keyboard touches, which limits your eye movement and reduces typos. It really keeps your users focused on big, nice buttons rather than they're very tiny little letters in a keyboard. And it's just more intuitive. We can create a flow to the screen that makes sense to your employees. So if it's more intuitive, what does that mean for you as a business? Well, it basically can make a more efficient training process for your seasonal employees, or your warehouse managers don't have to spend as much time training new onboards or that seasonal employee that before, to teach them how to use your emulation system. If you only had them for 6 or 8 weeks, the first 2 or 3 weeks you spent teaching them how to use the system. So you really see gains on that front. And again, some of the points I touched on a little bit earlier, the warehouse managers of today grew up with technology, and the internet, and they're more inclined and want to inject technology into the system to be more efficient. So, they're used to using that in their everyday lives, and they want to bring it to work, and sometimes it's frustrating when they can't do that. So, some of the functionality, and again, this is really where the demo kind of starts to become more important, because showing you what we're talking about is so much more intuitive or so much easier for you guys to see. It's easier to see than for me to tell you about it and have you gain any kind of value. So, this last screen here is just some of the options, and we're going to go right through this right away. You'll see on the left here the 1, and the 2. If you want to do that in your green screen, for example, for a pick operation, to pick by a label, you got to touch the keyboard. You got to hit a 1. You got to hit a 1 on the next screen for outbound. You got to hit a 2 to pick by label. On a modern screen, we can just program a button that goes directly to the label, and it'll take you right there. And we're going to show you that very quickly. But incorporating those new buttons to auto navigate to menu items deeper in the system is absolutely something real that is tangible and reduces touches, reduces error, saves you time, and is more intuitive. We could add buttons to call native apps like a calculator or a camera to leverage the device capabilities right from within your WMS. And I'll show you some of that as well. Well, what does that mean? So let's say, for example, you have a damaged items process where you have to take a picture of a damaged item that you either receive or you're shipping to a customer. A lot of times our customers tell us that process takes them anywhere from 2 to 15 minutes, depending on the situation. We have customers that, they got to go back to the shipping manager's office and get a camera, and they come out and they take the picture, and then they go back to the office and they take the SD card out of the camera and put it in the laptop, and then they kind of send the picture off to an email or a database. So, that process might take a guy 10 or 15 minutes to do. We can very quickly incorporate functionality on the device that would make that process maybe take 10 or 15 seconds rather than 10 or 15 minutes. So we'll show you some of that. And we're going to add some buttons to quickly return to, we can add buttons to quickly return to a previous menu or even log off the system, which could be a high level of customization depending on the situation. But, we're able to do those things, and coupled with the optimization stuff of, the keyboards and some of the other things, we can really do some cool stuff. So the big part of that is really, the value in this is actually seeing it work. So I'm going to actually end the slideshow. We'll come back to this informational slide at the end of the demo, so you know how to get a hold of us. But I really want to dive right into the demo and keep that moving. So I'm going to end the slideshow here, and you should see my device. So this is a handheld mobile computer with a built-in scan engine that's at my desk here. So I want to just you know, it doesn't have a device skin on it, so you can see exactly what we're talking about. But you guys know what mobile computers look like for the most part. If you're interested in this topic, so I want to jump right in, and I kind of left it up there on the modernized screen just to kind of grab your attention. But we're going to start at the migrate phase, and then we're going to go into optimization, and then we're going to go into modernization, just like the slideshow presented. You'll notice here are my host profiles. So all of this is happening on this device, and all of these profiles are in various stages of those phases of MOMS. So we're going to start with a green screen, and if you look here, this is exactly what we showed on some of the screens, and I'm swiping from left to right to go through my keyboards. It's a very green screeny textual TE system, if you guys are familiar with those. So I'm just going to go through a quick pick operation and show you this. I mean, just to see what it would look like so you have some context. So I'm going to do a 1 and a 1 and a 2 to pick my label. And I'm going to scan a barcode here for my LPN number. Okay, so my operator knows that he has to go to location D74D. We're going to scan that barcode, and he's picking automatic pet feeders, required quantity 7, so we can scroll and look to see that if we need to. We can pinch that down if we need to. We can also lock that size. We can adjust the text size, so we can do a lot of things to make sure that your system is displayed correctly. So we're already on a numeric keyboard, and this is saying that we need 7, and we've confirmed that we have 7 pet feeders to go to our shipment. So we're going to confirm that and tap enter, and it takes us right into our next pick, which is E48C. And we're going to go pick fleece dog beds when we get there, and we need 93 of those. We only have 92, so we enter that, and now it's asking for an override. Can we confirm yes or no? So again, these old systems are designed just like this. You know, when I see this screen, I say, what do I need to enter here? Well, if you have to be taught, you need to enter a Y or an N. So I'm going to just enter a Y to keep that moving, and we're on to our next screen. So I say I'm done, and I want to close out of this order. I'm going to swipe over to get to my function. I'm going to do an F4, and now it's to my next LPN. I can now do an F3 to exit. I'm back to my outbound, and F3 to go back, and F3 to go back, and now I'm at my main menu. And this isn't anything, I think anybody that's familiar with this technology, this I'm sure looks a lot like your WMS. So, you know, that's really just kind of showing you some of the functionality that you know, exists. If you have a mobile computer that has a keyboard, and there's still many of those available today, you just get rid of this keyboard and you use your hardware keyboard. Okay, so that keyboard, there's options. You can get rid of the keyboard. You can make sure the keyboard pops up. So all of that is kind of configurable when we do that migration phase. The point is, you know, on a completely touchscreen device, I'm able to do my WMS pick process, my DC process, all of those things. So moving on, I want to show you real quick what that same process looks like with our keyboard. Again, you know, just kind of reducing touches and swipes. I'm going to do a 1, and a 2 to pick my label. I'm going to scan my LPN to get my directions and scan my location, and I'm picking pet feeders, 7, and we're going to enter that. And we're going to scan the next location. And again, we only have 92 of these, so we're going to enter that. And very quickly, rather than swipe, 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 I'm able to tap ABC. I can say yes to do my override. Now I can very quickly touch function, and I can go to do my F4, my F3 to exit, my F3, my F3, and I'm back to the main menu. So just, very slightly, maybe a little bit more efficient, reduce touches, reduce that eye movement that takes the user's focus away from their actual task, right? But, those are just kind of things that we've learned over time that help with the efficiency and accuracy. So that's really migrate, and I'm going through this very quickly, but I can show you a lot more processes, but really migrate is really the focus, is just do on new devices what you're doing on your legacy devices today. So the optimize is where we kind of start seeing some real gains. And if we look at this screen, this screen immediately, it looks just like the other screen. The keyboard isn't that much different. We've incorporated some tabs, things like that. But we're going to go right into that same process, and I want to show you a few cool features that we've used to optimize the system. So right now, you'll notice that if I pop right up on a numeric keyboard, part of the reason for that is this is expecting either numeric input or a function input. But really, the first function here is main menu. What are we doing? Are we doing a warehouse? Are we doing a storefront? So it brought up the numeric keyboard right away. So we're going to do a 1. We're going to do that same 1 for outbound. We're going to do that same 2 for pick by label. Right here, we're at our LPN, so it wants us to scan. Now, you'll notice this screen very quickly before I scan. This screen is expecting one of two functions, or two processes to happen. We're going to scan a barcode, or we're going to hit F3 to exit. So if you notice, I didn't do anything for the keyboard. When I hit this screen, it intuitively switched that screen over to a function keyboard. If I'm going to scan, I don't need the keyboard. If I'm going to hit F3, I need this keyboard. So it changed to that automatically. So pay attention to that as we kind of navigate through here. So now I'm at a location. It wants me to scan to do a location, or use a function key to navigate to skip or close the screen. So we're going to scan our location, and now it's expecting numeric input as the primary function. So we quickly change the keyboard to a numeric keyboard right away, so your user does not have to then swipe 3 times to get back and forth. So that's just some of that optimization that we talked about. So again, we're going to do a 7. And we're going to move on to the next feature. Okay, and again, it's expecting scan data, or it's expecting a function. So we're going to scan our location. And again, just to keep it consistent, we're going to say we have 92 dog beds. And we're going to hit enter. And now look what we have on the keyboard, right? So instead of having to teach that user, you have to hit yes or no. You have to navigate back to your alpha keyboard. We gave them a custom keyboard that pops up with a yes or a no option. So it just gives your users that more guided feel through the system. Give them a nice big button, so hopefully reduces the eye movement, and we keep it moving through the system. And now we're going to do an F4 and an F3. And now, again, because this screen's primary function is numeric, it's saying, do you want to pick by label or tote? It's expecting numeric input. So very quickly we tap function. Go back to our F3, function again, F3. So, optimization is great, but it's not the end-all be-all. It doesn't, you can't predict, the system can't predict if you're going frontwards or backwards through the system. So, that's still a challenge with some of the optimization, as opposed to, what we'll look at with modernization. Real quick, one more point with the optimization and what we can do with keyboards. So if you remember, I tapped 1, 1, 2 to get into my pick by tote operation. Notice on the left-hand side of the keyboard here, we have a tote button. I tap that button. It takes me right to where I can scan my LPN and begin my pick process. So you are able to do additional features in a green screen scenario without a modernization. Okay, but it does then become very very difficult sometimes to manage keyboards if you do lots and lots and lots of keyboards. And if that's the ask of CSSI, we're really going to point you towards a modernization effort that you'll see is much easier to manage on a screen-by-screen basis. So jump over there and take a look at the modernized portion of this. This is really where a lot of this ties together. So you'll notice, this is a screen. You've got your two options: your warehouse, your storefront. You've got your tote and label options that I just showed you on the previous keyboard, and you have an exit option. You also have a camera function. So we're going to talk about some of that, but what I want to do here is I'm going to switch this over to a native mode. This is the screen that we're on. And if we pull up our keyboard and we do a 1, a 1, and a 2 to get to that LPN screen, if we go back to the modernized mode, you can see that this modernized mode navigated with us through that system. So what that's telling you is the screen is being presented to the device. The device is recognizing that screen and injecting this modernized overlay to the user. So instead of hitting a F3 to exit, what I've done now is just made a back button that ultimately sends an F3 command to that back-end system. I can go back again. I can go back again. I'm back at my storefront. Or, I'm sorry, my main menu. If I wanted to go directly to that pick by label screen, I just tap label, and there I am. Okay? Go back, back, back. So what about the camera? We'll talk about the camera in a moment. I want to go through those same processes that we were going through in the modernize and optimize before we do that. So I'm going to, in fact, do a warehouse, an outbound, and a pick by label. Or, for the efficiency guys, pick by label and go right to the same place, right? And I'm going to scan my LPN here and get my directions. So, where does this become more accurate and where does it become more intuitive is some of the questions that we get. And you can see right on the screen, we're on aisle B, we're on base 74, we're on level D. And all we're presenting the user is confirm the location. Tell me that you're right there at that spot. So if we go over and we look at the native mode of this screen, is that what this is telling us? Technically, yes. But is it as intuitive as a screen that's only saying, show me where you're at? I can argue that it's not. So let's go back to the modern mode, okay? And again, just to kind of show some of the effectiveness of the programmable buttons, I programmed the scan button, and just to clarify, we can give you a button that would activate the scan engine. That's not what this button does. This button actually enters the correct location into the field, so I don't have to carry around a sheet of barcodes when I'm demoing this. But for the purpose of the demo, I'm actually going to activate and scan the barcode here on my sheet. And now we're at the automatic pet feeder. Our required quantity is still 7. It's asking us how many do you have on hand, right? That is the prompt. What do you have? Also notice there's a fancy picture there that wasn't there before, right? So not only can you give them the information in a textual format, you can give them very visual aids to say, this is what I want you to pick. Moving boxes, moving crates, moving pallets, that's not always valid, but for those of you that are doing 3PL or doing individual processes, this could be very intuitive for you. So if we take a look and just compare the native mode, again, this is technically correct. It's doing exactly what the other screen is, but I would argue that it's not as intuitive for your user to know what they need to do. So here again, we could automatically, because this is a touchscreen computer, we could automatically pop this up, and the system knows, okay, I'm expecting numerical input, so I need a numerical key. Or we could systematically, on this screen, pop the keyboard up because we know it's a touchscreen on the computer. We're going to enter 7. Now, if I go back before I enter, okay, so you know that, it really is just feeding that back-end system, right? And we'll enter that data, and we're off to our next location, and we'll do a fleece dog bed, right? And we know that our quantity's been 92 all day, so let's stick with that. We're going to enter 92. So now, instead of a yes/no prompt and a keyboard action, I presented them with 2 buttons. Do you really have 92, or did you make a typo and you need to go back? Right? So we'll confirm that, and we keep it moving right into our next pick operation. Let's say we're done with that one. So before, if you remember, I had to pull the keyboard up, I had to go to function, navigate back through the menus of function. Now I have a simple button interface, reducing my eye movement, reducing my touches, making me more efficient. So hopefully that gives you some taste for, how a modernized screen overlay can really, really help drive your business forward. I do want to show you some of the camera functionality. I'm running a little behind here, so I want to do it very quickly. We're going to do a warehouse and an outbound and a pick by tote, because that's where I have this functionality built in. Oops. I got buttons happy there. So we're picking cooling fans, and we're picking 27 of them, and you can see the task number and the item number at the top of the screen. So this should look very familiar to the process we just did with the fleece dog beds. Then you'll notice, instead of just confirming this quantity, I also have a damaged item button. So if I do a damaged item, this loads a form, and if you'll notice on the form, you have an item number, 71651, and a prompt for an email address, and then some buttons to add a document or add an image. So what we're going to do, if we go back, we look at our item number, 71651, right? So let's confirm that quantity and move on to our next location here. And next pick, and now we're picking jumper cables. So notice your item number, 17514 now. Hit that damaged item box, and it's loading that item number automatically into the form field. So, and this is functionality that CSSI has created to work with Velocity as an add-on. You're probably not going to find this anywhere else. And as I fill this out, let's put my email address in here. And as I fill that out, it's important to note that this could be an email address, this could be a web API, this could be a SQL database. We can send this data anywhere, and we can do it automatically. So just an FYI on that. But let's pretend here that my nice little CSSI ruler is our damaged good. I'll take a picture of that. That's a little blurry. Let's try that again. It's a little better. So we'll add that, and we'll send that email off. And then there's a little delay as it wraps that email up. I'm going to go ahead and slide my email here over on the screen. And very soon you'll see that email hit my mailbox with that very image attached that we just took. Okay? So that's not magic, right? That's just email. But we notice as we close this, as that email sent off, we're right back to our pick operation with our jumper cables, and we didn't walk to the manager's office to get the camera, and we didn't have to walk back there to give him the SD card, and we didn't have to wait on him to email it. So we took maybe a 5-10 minute process and turned it into a 10-second process. We can also add documents. So say in a receiving operation, right, you have to sign your BOL, or you have to present a driver with a BOL when you're shipping. So That's a little off. But you can see here on the screen, I was able to quickly capture that whole document. And let's actually rescan that because that's too far off for my liking. Now we got a little better accuracy there. So let's accept that. And again, we'll send it to me. This was going to take a little longer because it's going to take a little longer to wrap those up. So 8 images were sent, right? Let's go back to my mailbox and see what that does for us. And again, this could be a web API, this could be your backend database, this could be your safety system. So as you know, your operators maybe are rewarded for identifying safety problems or potential safety issues. You know, they can quickly pull their device out, tap the safety button, pull up the camera, fire it off to a database somewhere, and get that that information quickly to managers without disrupting their workday. And this 8 images here are going to take a little while to hit my mailbox. So hopefully that's not it. So we'll wait for that. I can pull that up as we move on. But I think, Joe, I think it's a great time here to open it up for questions. We went through a lot of information very quickly, so I want to make sure that people are understanding of what we're trying to do here.